When one of the largest buildings ever constructed opened in China, the man who built it wasn't there. He wasn't sick, he wasn't traveling, he was in custody. And that would already be a strange ending to one of the most ambitious construction projects in modern China. Except the building itself is even stranger, because inside this enormous glass structure, more than 1,000 kilometers from the nearest ocean, there is a beach, a real one. Sand, waves, palm trees, water slides, a lazy river, a pirate ship. The entire Pentagon could disappear inside this building several times over. Hotels are built into its walls. Office towers rise around its edges. A metro station feeds directly into it. And somewhere beneath all of that tropical water is an underground parking garage large enough for thousands of cars. This is the New Century Global Center. And the most interesting thing about it isn't how big it is, it's how something this absurd ever got built in the first place. Because behind the fake coastline was a very real story about ambition, political power, cheap land, spectacular growth, and the men who pushed all of it too far. The Global Center sits in Chengdu, the capital of China's Sichuan province. From outside, it doesn't really look like a normal building. It looks more like an airport terminal, a convention center, and a futuristic cruise ship somehow fused together. The structure stretches roughly 500 meters from end to end and around 400 meters across. Its total floor area is about 1.7 million square meters. That number is almost meaningless until you try to compare it with something familiar. Imagine dozens of large American shopping malls. Now imagine pushing all of them together, then put offices, hotels, theaters, and an indoor water park inside the same shell. You're starting to get the idea. But walking through the doors is where the scale becomes surreal. There are shopping streets designed to resemble European coastal towns. Restaurants and cafes run through the lower floors. Office blocks form much of the perimeter. An intercontinental hotel looks inward toward the massive central atrium. There are cinemas, conference spaces, and an ice rink. And then you reach the center, Paradise Island, the beach that absolutely should not be here. Thousands of square meters of sand slope toward a huge wave pool. Mechanical surf rolls toward the shore. A lazy river circles fake rocks and palm trees. Slides descend from the upper levels. Families climb around a full-size pirate ship. And above them is an enormous screen capable of turning the ceiling into a blue sky, an ocean horizon, or a glowing sunset. That isn't just decoration. Chengdu is famous for long stretches of gray, overcast weather. Inside this building, weather is optional. A hotel guest can step onto a balcony several floors above the atrium and watch waves hit a beach that exists inside a shopping complex hundreds of miles from the sea. It feels less like a mall and more like somebody tried to manufacture an entire climate. Which raises an obvious question. Why? Why would anyone build this here? To understand that, you have to go back to a moment when Chengdu was trying to reinvent itself. By the early 2000s, Chengdu was already a huge city, but internationally, it lived in the shadow of China's coastal giants. Beijing had political power. Shanghai had its skyline. Shenzhen had become a manufacturing machine. Chengdu wanted its own transformation, and it was happening at exactly the right moment. China's central government was pushing development deeper into the country's western regions. For Chengdu, that meant infrastructure, investment, and political momentum. The city began expanding aggressively south. A new urban corridor grew along Tianfu Avenue, stretching away from Chengdu's older center into areas that had previously been much less developed. This wasn't supposed to become another suburb. The goal was much bigger: a new business district, new office towers, technology companies, hotels, convention facilities, a second center of gravity for the city. And one of the political figures associated with that transformation was Li Chuncheng. Li wanted development fast, very fast, the kind of speed that turns farmland into boulevards and construction sites almost overnight. But city officials could draw the plan. They still needed developers capable of filling it, and one developer stood out. His name was Deng Hong. Deng had been a soldier before becoming an entrepreneur. By the 1990s and early 2000s, his businesses were increasingly involved in hotels, exhibitions, and convention projects around Chengdu. He understood something important about the city's strategy. If Chengdu wanted to become a major commercial center for Western China, it needed places where major events could actually happen. Deng's company acquired land in the Southern Development Zone and built a huge convention and exhibition complex. When it opened, it worked. Trade fairs brought visitors. Visitors filled hotels. Hotels supported restaurants. Business traffic moved south. For city planners, it was proof that the new district could work. For Deng, it was proof that he could build on a scale few private developers could match. And once that happened, the next idea became almost inevitable. If a convention center could bring people into the district, why not build an entire city under one roof next to it? The idea behind the global center was almost ridiculously simple. Take everything a new business district needs and compress it into one enormous structure. Offices, retail, hotels, entertainment. Then make it so large that nobody could ignore it. By around 2010, construction was underway, and the pace was extraordinary. Within only a few years, an enormous steel and glass structure had risen beside Chengdu's new southern corridor. The design leaned heavily into the fantasy inside. Its roof sweeps across the site like a giant wave. A vast glass-covered atrium forms the center. Around that open interior volume sit offices, retail levels, and hotel rooms. Moving people through something this large required infrastructure closer to a transport hub than a conventional shopping mall. There were hundreds of elevators, huge underground parking areas, and direct access to Chengdu's expanding metro system. But the truly unusual engineering problem was sitting right in the middle, the beach. Think about what that means inside a sealed building. Thousands of people, a giant heated pool, a lazy river, constant evaporation, warm sand, artificial lighting, and all of that moisture trapped beneath an enormous roof. The building needed systems capable of controlling the climate of an indoor space measured in millions of cubic meters. And below the water park sat parts of the building that absolutely could not become a water park. So the atrium required extensive waterproofing, filtration, and drainage. There was another challenge. Only 2 years before major construction began, the devastating Wenchuan earthquake had struck Sichuan. Any enormous new landmark in Chengdu would face serious questions about structural safety. The result was a building designed less like a mall and more like a piece of urban infrastructure. And somehow, it came together. By 2013, the shops were preparing to open. The hotel was taking shape. The wave machines were ready. The artificial sun could rise. Chengdu was about to unveil the landmark that would announce its new district to the world. There was only one problem. The man behind it had disappeared. In late February 2013, only months before the building's opening, Deng Hong was detained by Chinese authorities for questioning. And the timing was not random. The investigation was connected to the political network that had helped drive Chengdu's southern expansion. Li Chuncheng had already come under investigation in late 2012 as China's new anti-corruption campaign began moving rapidly through the political system. Investigators turned their attention toward land transactions and development deals made during Chengdu's expansion, and that brought them back to Deng. The relationship now looked very different from the success story it had been only a few years earlier. A developer had gained access to enormously valuable land. A powerful official had aggressively promoted development in the same district, and investigators were now examining whether favorable land arrangements had been connected to corruption. Suddenly, the spectacular building waiting to open beside Tianfu Avenue wasn't just a symbol of Chengdu's ambition, it was evidence of how that ambition had been financed. Yet construction didn't stop, neither did the opening. Employees continued preparing the complex. Stores stocked their shelves. The hotel prepared its rooms. The water park filled its pools. The artificial sun came on. And on July 1st, 2013, the New Century Global Center opened. Officials attended. Guests arrived. The beach began operating. But Deng Hong wasn't standing beneath the glass dome, watching the building he had spent years creating come alive. He was still in custody. And once you know that, the entire opening takes on a different feeling. On the surface, Chengdu had just completed one of the most extraordinary commercial buildings on Earth. Behind the scenes, the network that had made it possible was beginning to collapse. And there was another part of the deal that made the story even more uncomfortable. The global center was not supposed to stand alone. The original development plans also included a major cultural project on an adjacent site. A dramatic arts center associated with architect Zaha Hadid was supposed to provide museums, performance spaces, and public cultural facilities. That mattered, because the global center was overwhelmingly commercial: retail, offices, hotels, entertainment. The cultural development helped provide a public-facing justification for an enormous private real estate project receiving favorable support. But while the commercial megastructure raced toward completion, the cultural promise did not keep pace. The global center opened. Its shops traded. Its hotel welcomed guests. Its beach filled with swimmers. Next door, the ambitious civic component remained unfinished. And suddenly, the contrast was difficult to ignore. The part that made money was complete. The part that had been promised to the public was not. It became a surprisingly neat metaphor for the entire project. Chengdu had gotten its landmark, but the process that created it was now being questioned. So what do you do with a 1.7 million square meter monument to a political era that has just ended? You keep it open. Because by this point, the global center was no longer just Deng Hong's project. It was part of the city. Closing the global center would have created an entirely new problem. This wasn't an abandoned tower hidden on the edge of town. It was the centerpiece of Chengdu's new southern business district. Thousands of people worked around it. Businesses depended on it. The metro connected to it, so the building stayed alive. At first, the surrounding district was still catching up. Some retail areas struggled to attract consistent traffic. The older parts of Chengdu remained powerful commercial centers. But year by year, the city kept moving south. Technology companies arrived. Office towers filled Tianfu Avenue. Metro lines expanded. New neighborhoods grew around them. What once looked like an oversized building sitting ahead of its city gradually became surrounded by the city it had anticipated. Ownership changed too. State-linked interests eventually took greater control of the assets. Later, the building became connected to Sunac, one of the major property companies caught up in China's enormous real estate boom. Then, the boom itself began to crack. Credit tightened. Developers struggled. Debt became the new story. And once again, the global center survived. That may be the strangest part of this entire project. Its original developer disappeared from public view. The political patron behind Chengdu's expansion fell. The ownership structure changed. China's property market went through one of its biggest crises in decades. But inside the building, the waves kept coming. Today, the New Century Global Center still operates. People shop beneath its giant roof. Workers arrive at its offices. Guests check into the hotel. Families float around the lazy river. Children climb over the pirate ship. And every day, inside a city, more than 1,000 kilometers from the coast, an artificial sun rises over an artificial beach. Chengdu eventually became exactly the kind of enormous modern metropolis its planners had imagined. Tianfu Avenue now stretches through a landscape of towers, metro stations, and technology campuses. The city grew around the monument that was once supposed to prove it had arrived. But the global center ended up representing something more complicated. It is a monument to confidence, to speed, to the belief that a city could simply build its future into existence. But it is also a monument to the political relationships, cheap land, and enormous flows of money that powered China's construction boom. The people behind it came and went. The deals changed, the promises changed, the owners changed. The building didn't. The strange thing about monuments is that they often survive the people who wanted to be remembered for them. Deng Hong built an indoor city. Li Chuncheng helped drive the transformation around it. Neither man's story ended the way the opening ceremony was supposed to suggest. But beneath the enormous glass roof they helped bring into existence, summer never ended. The waves still roll in, and the fake sun still rises. If you could spend one day inside the global center, where would you go first? The beach? The ice rink? Or would you just walk around trying to understand how anyone managed to build this place at all?